In the next photograph, you can explain. See, as per this particular picture, the shark is a dangerous animal which tries to uh, pick up anything that comes on its way and tries to pick up as a food. Okay. So as if the person, if you see here, the shark is a hazard. Hazard is, the meaning of hazard is anything or any process or any object or any thing that has got the potential to cause harm. So something, if you say inherently, something has got a potential to cause harm. So what, if you take knife has got the potential to cut. Right now, if you don't handle knife properly, what will happen? It can cut. It can cut. It will not. It doesn't mean that every time you handle a knife, it will cut. Na? When you ride a bike, there's a potential to fall down. So it doesn't mean that every time we'll fall down, but the hazard is there. Hazard means something that can turn an event into a bad thing and that can injure the person. That's the hazard. Suppose when you're trying to switch on any light or bulb, so you always do that. Every time you switch on and switch off, nothing will happen. But one day, due to some loose connection or something, or due to improper plug or something, that can have a shock. So, what you are trying to say is that there is a hazard. There is always a hazard. So, if whether you use it or not, the entire electric lines are full of electricity running through. So, only if you don't use it, if you use it improperly, only the shock will happen. Otherwise, the shock will never happen. So the hazard is always there in the electrical lines. It doesn't mean that if you don't get shock, electricity is not there. So the plug, which is a plastic plug, it is preventing you to have a direct access to the current. So that is why you are not getting the shock. So hazard is there in everything. Everything has got an inherent potential to cause certain harm. Suppose even if you take a ball, if you take a stone, if you take some material, if you take a hammer, everything in this world or every activity in this world has got some hazard. Hazard means that has something that has the potential in it to cause harm or some damage or some potential to do some damage or whatever it is. So that is called hazard. What is hazard? Hazard means an inherent tendency to cause certain damage. That is called the actual hazard. So sometimes if you're due to improper use or improper activities, the hazard can actually get reflected into a real-time this one, and that will be a problem to the persons who are using it. That will measure it in risk. Okay, for time being, let us assume, come back to this picture. Let us assume that the shark is the hazard here. Why? Because the shark inherently has got the tendency to attack anybody, anything in its pathway. Until unless it is not hungry, it will not do anything. But most of the time, it will start attacking anything. So especially if we are only concerned with two things, person and a man and a shark. So the shark, even though the shark tendency to attack, okay, even though the hazard is there, the shark is there, in the first picture, it cannot do anything because it tries to be moving around that in the sea, but it cannot come to the land. It cannot jump to the land and take him off. No? So the power of the hazard is only present in the sea itself. So the shark, until unless it is present in the sea, it cannot have any impact on the person standing. The problem of the shark is never there. Even if you sit on the beach side, there are thousands of lakhs of animals in the sea. Nothing will come and eat you, right? Nobody will come and drag you, right? So only until unless we go into the sea, we are not exposed to the hazard. See, so which means that person is not exposed. So as long as somebody is not exposed to the hazard, the risk will be zero. In the first picture, there is no risk. But the hazard will always be there. Hazard you cannot make zero. Only the hazard will always be present. Only the risk we will calculate. In order to study in safety, hazard and risk are both discussed side by side. But understand that hazard has nothing to define with respect to the danger. Hazard will tell you whether there is an inherent danger or not. That's all. But the actual outcome of that danger has to be understood in terms of risk. So in the first picture, Even though the shark is there, it is no matter to the person, right? Because he's not going into the sea. So whether the shark stays for 24 hours or whether it is hungry or not, it is not a concern to the person because he's not getting exposed. He's not getting exposed. So when there is no exposure and there is a hazard, then the risk will be zero. So in the second photograph, the person started swimming into the sea. Now the shark can easily pick that person within seconds because it is easy for the shark to swim in the water and within seconds it can pick that person and go away, or it can bite or whatever it is. So it can do the required harm to the person. So what has happened? The person who is standing on the edge has now become closer to the risk, closer to the hazard. So which means the exposure is now very, now the exposure to the hazard is very near. Now the person started exposing himself to the hazard. Now the hazard, when it gets, when the exposure becomes very near to the hazard, the risk will be very, very high. Now it is the actual risk that has happened. So across the, even in our daily activities or daily routine or in industries also, there are thousands and thousands of activities that will be going on daily. And there many people are exposed to hazards daily, thousands and thousands of hazards every day. But every time every second there is not going to be any accident. Na? So if there are thousands of hazards, everybody should get a risk every minute. Now why it is not happening? Because the exposure part is what defining the risk. So until unless hazard is there, even though if you're not exposed to the hazard, nothing will happen. So when the risk is zero, no need to worry about. But when the risk is very high, then you have to take care that the exposure and the hazard are not met with each other. There should be some barrier or there should be some distance. That is what you have to maintain. That is what the professional, safety professional are meant to do. So the far away from the exposure and hazard, the less will be the risk. Less risk means the less the chances of getting an injury or a hazard or injury or accident or incident, whatever it is. So that will be a safe processes. That is what we do every day also, unknowingly or knowingly. Even in our daily activities also, we calculate in our brain to make ourselves distant from hazards, so that we are trying to just decrease the risk, decrease the risk. So when there is a, suppose your daily, for example, let me say, tell you one more example of this hazard exposure and this, so that you'll become more understandable with respect to our daily routine activities. Okay. Now let me come with an explanation that there is a, in your house, in everybody's house, there is a knife. So that is used for cutting vegetables or cutting any other thing, whatever it is. So the knife is a sharp object. So any sharp object will have cutting hazard. You'll have a cutting hazard means it has got intrinsic potential to cause some harm when not handled properly. That is what hazard means. So if you start using the knife only, then only the risk, then only you are getting exposed to the knife, right? Now, then only there is a chance of hand getting cut or finger getting cut or something. So that means that whenever you are handling the knife, that means whenever you are exposed to knife, then only the chance of risk will be high. Suppose the knife is in the cupboard and nobody is touching it. Even though the hazard is there, but since nobody is exposed, the risk would be zero. So as long as you don't touch the knife, there is no point in a knife. Similarly, there are many things, many hazards in the around us. But what we do is that we try to avoid them. Avoid them means we try to keep ourselves zero exposed with it. When we don't have exposure with it, what will happen? There will be no risk. No risk means no danger. But if you happen to be near it, then the danger will also increase. So it is true for everything in the this one. Suppose there is a fire, okay, somewhere in an organization, in some plant, plant in the sense in some company. So see, if you're standing very far off from the fire, okay, very far off from the fire, which means that heat or that particular smoke, you're not exposed. So there is no risk. But if you start slowly moving towards the fire, the heat intensity will also increase and also the smoke intensity will increase, which means you're getting exposed to the fire. So fire will cause to, what is the hazard of the fire? Fire will either make persons burn or it will have smoke getting coming into the way, because most people don't die out of fire, but they die out of smoke. So that is how we have to understand always. Whenever you are trying to deal with any problem in safety, you have to use two words: save, hazard and risk. So when there, only when risk is there, only we'll take controls. When risk is not there, we will not take controls. Only the hazard will be studied for future this one. Okay, hazard, you cannot take decisions based on only hazard. You have to have risk also in the. If you think the risk is high, then only you will take control. Otherwise, you will not take control. So that is the first and foremost thing to understand in this particular photograph. Hope you got some idea on hazard and risk, right? Hope you got some idea on hazard and risk.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So there is this. So you take some time, around 2-3 minutes. All of you look at this photo.
Sir. Sir. Mohan, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Good evening. सर आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
आप थोड़ा टाइम वेट कर दीजिए. सुभान अल्लाह जी, आपको बहुत यू आर वेरी फास्ट देन ऑल ऑफ अस. ओके, आई केप्ट माई. मैं क्या बोला, मैं बोला आपको पिक्चर देख के थोड़ा टाइम लेके बात करो. यू सेइंग आवाज नहीं आ रहा है, आपका कान अच्छा नहीं है, आपका मुंह अच्छा नहीं है, तो मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ?
नहीं सर, काना नहीं किया है, बस तो मैं
नो नो,
क्लास में
थोड़ा
जो
थोड़ा थोड़ा
सही.
थोड़ा आराम से, शांति से डील करो ना. या नईमत जी, या नईमत जी, या. सो you want to speak or something? I think you want to tell me about that one, right? बोल दीजिए आपका. नईमत खान जी, या टेल मी. आपने हैंड रेस किया. So look at this picture and try to understand what is in the left and what is in the right. Okay. So if somebody is okay trying to say that, yeah, Asad ji, yeah, bol dijiye.
Sir, during previous explanation, you said the person is died with smoke.
Okay.
मतलब, how a person die with smoke?
See, Asad ji, if you in a fire accident, okay, any कोई भी fire में, nobody will die out of fire. Okay, fire में कोई, suppose there is a किधर भी आग लग रहा है, nobody will die immediately out of fire. The first thing that will come is smoke. When that smoke, people will start taking inside and they will get suffocated. Suffocated means oxygen come, that will replace the entire oxygen in the lungs. So once oxygen is replaced, they will get asphyxiated and immediately they will become unconscious. Once unconscious, and they will fall there itself, and the fire which is spreading will slowly come, and then they will have the fire burns. ऐसा नहीं है कि nobody wants to stay in fire. So the most of the people will get a problem with fire, not due to the fire itself. It is due to the smoke. Okay, the smoke is the main culprit. So most of the people will lose lives in fire initially due to the smoke. Kidhar bhi, because the smoke is the main problem. Many people get. Suppose you're in somebody is stuck up in the lift in. Suppose somebody is stuck up in the rooms and all. The smoke is so high that people will become unconscious. The smoke has got many chemicals in it, like carbon monoxide, methane, and all. This will replace the oxygen.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, study this particular diagram, and I want an if you are okay with it, just raise your hand. So then I'll ask you. Okay. Yeah, Gulamji, bolo.
Sir, we understand all both those two things.
क्या जी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है आपका आवाज क्लियर नहीं है
Sir, I tell you that we understand both these two pictures. In the first picture, the left one, a
हाँ,
person is standing behind the leader, and there is no chance of hazard because the person is not trying to climb on the ladder. On the other hand, the person is trying to climb on the ladder, so there is high chance of hazard and high risk.
correct. So yeah, tell me,
Sir,
sir.
this means that hazard use risk. Am I right, sir?
Which means that hazard?
Hazard produce risk. If there is high hazards, then there will be high risk. If
No,
there
no,
is
no. Hazard, there will be no high hazard or low hazard. Hazard is hazard. Hazard will
yes,
never change. Hazard will always be there. It is the person's exposure with the hazard that will change. That will only reflect as risk.
yes,
Yes, what you tried to give an explanation was noteworthy and it is very good. So think over again. So just give me 1 minute.
Sir, can I give you explanation?
Yeah, tell me now. Anybody can explain what is happening? Asaji, I think you raised your hand to explain.
Sir, I explain this diagram or I give my own example about this.
No, no, explain the picture, no, what I kept it. What is, okay, I'll ask you this question. What is the
Okay,
hazard
sir.
in this picture?
Sir, the hazard is ladder,
Yes, correct,
stair.
100%. Very good. You got a very good absolute. This one, hazard is ladder. So why hazard is ladder? Because the ladder has got the potential, because the ladder
To
itself
harm
can
you.
fall. Yeah, it can fall on us, or the person who is climbing on it can also slip from the ladder. So there are two ways that a hazard can come out in the form of two ways. Yes. So it can happen that the ladder can, while climbing, the ladder itself can fall down, or the person can also slip from the ladder. These two things can happen. We don't know which one will happen, but any one thing will happen. If the ladder is not properly stationed or uneven floor, so the ladder itself will fall along with the person. That is a one hazard. Another hazard is that if the ladder steps are very slippery, then the person, if is not properly catching, he can slip and fall down. So that is another thing it can happen. So that is the hazard. Very good. What you said is correct. Ladder is the hazard. Right. Now tell me, what is the now come to the exposure. In the first one, what is there?
Yes, sir.
In the first photograph or the first
Yes, sir.
picture, hazard is there and a person is there. So in the first picture, the person is just standing. He is looking at
Yes, sir.
he is nowhere concerned with the hazard. So that until
Sir, he is
unless
near
uh,
to hazard and he has no risk.
yes, because he's not exposed to the hazard. That's what you want to you need to say. He's not exposed means until unless he starts climbing the hazard lift. Sorry, climb the ladder or is playing with the ladder. He is not exposed to the ladder, so that the risk would be zero. So there will be no harm coming from the ladder. That is what the that first one is saying. In the second one, you tell me. Yeah, the second picture. The
Yes,
person
sir.
start the person started climbing.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
now he got exposed to the hazard. Now he is now linked to the hazard.
Sir, he is on risk
Yes,
now.
because he may fall. So now the risk, unlike hazard, risk can be low risk, medium risk, and high risk. Suppose if the person while climbing the ladder, suppose he falls from the first step, so he'll get normal injuries. So that is low risk. Person after reaching to the middle of the ladder, when he slips from there, he will get a somewhat major injury. So he is called medium risk. After reaching the top of the ladder, from there, if he falls down along with the ladder or if he falls down without ladder getting slipped, whatever it is, then he'll get a major injury. So that is called major risk. So depending upon the intensity of the exposure also, you can say what is the intensity of the risk. But hazard will always remain the same. So hazard is an intrinsic property. And whereas risk is an extrinsic property. I mean, outcome of the hazard is the outcome of risk into hazard into exposure is risk. So the amount of exposure, if you are exposed too much to the hazard, more risk will be there. If you are exposed less to the hazard, you will have less risk. That's all. It is as good as saying if you are uh, exposed too much to the hazard. So now you tell me your own example. Yeah, you want me to tell one own example? You tell me. Yeah.
Sir, if a person is working in front of electric wires,
Hmm.
the electric wires are covered.
Okay.
The person who is working as hazard to wires, if the wires are naked.
No, 1 minute. You now tell me, you're saying that a
Yes, sir.
person is working on electrical wires. That is what you're saying?
In front of electric wires,
That is what? In front or near to the electric
it's
wires? What
a
is,
chance to touch hand to wires. Uh,
yes, in
if the
front of
wire,
electric wires. Now tell
yes, sir,
me,
yes, sir.
in your example, now tell me, what is the hazard?
Sir, the hazards are wire.
Correct. Because there is electricity in it. There is
Yes,
electricity
sir.
in it. That is why it is hazard. Very good. Now you tell me,
If the
hmm,
wires are naked
yes,
and he is near to touching the wires, this
yes.
is risk.
Yes. So what you said was a good example. Suppose there are wires. Person is in front of the wires. So the hazard is wires because the electric wires because there is a hazard. Anybody, so always the shock is ready to be there. Only until unless now the person touches the wire. But suppose my first case, let us assume that wires are completely sealed with proper insulated material. So even the person touches it also, he is not exposed to the hazard because the wire is the insulated protection is protecting the worker from actually getting into the live wire inside whichever is there metal wire. But in the second case, what you said, the wires are open, naked wires. So in the second case, when the person unknowingly touches, he will get a very huge shock because he is exposed to the hazard. In the first one, even though he is exposed to the hazard, there is a protection that is being present in the form of insulated material. Whereas in the second one, that insulated material is not there. So the protection is lost. Such that is why he got a complete exposure to the risk, to the hazard. So in the second case, there is absolutely very high risk. In the first case, it is low risk. You cannot say zero risk. See, please understand that whenever somebody is touching the hazard, and even though hazard is completely isolated, still there will be some amount of risk, slow risk. Only we can have zero risk only when somebody doesn't go and touch. So now there are three cases here. What you said is a very good example. Suppose a person is very far away from the wires, whether the wires are
Yes, sir.
open, whether the wires are naked wires. Naked wires means which doesn't have a proper protection. That is what naked wires is. So whether the wires are open or the wires are properly closed, it doesn't matter to the person because the person is never going to touch it. So that means there, even though the hazard is there, whatever amount of hazard is there, he is not going to get exposed. So the risk is zero. In first case, let us assume that the wires are properly sealed with plastic and all, and properly tied with this cellophane, that particular electric tape, and they are closed. So unknowingly, the person comes and touches during that time. That time shock will not occur to him because there is a proper protection given to the naked wires. So when there is a proper protection given, even though the person is exposed to the hazard, there is a barrier in the form of tape that is protecting it. So we can say low risk, zero, not zero risk, but low risk. Why? Because there can be very, very small amount of electricity that can pass through that tape and it can get to his body, but the body is not able to sense it also, whatever it is. So there is a low risk. You can say very, very zero risk, almost a negligible risk. You cannot say zero risk, negligible risk. But if you, in the second case, when the wires are open, he will get a very huge shock. So that is because he is exposed to completely to the hazard. So that is called high risk. Okay. So always you should understand, if the person or anybody who is exposed to the hazard, if there is a large distance between the hazard and the exposure, then there will be zero risk. When the person starts coming to the hazard and the hazard is properly controlled, then you will have a low risk, very absolutely low risk. You cannot say zero risk, but almost all zero risk. But some risk you have to give. In the scale of 1 to 10, we will give 1. In the second one, where the wires are opened, if you want to give in a scale of 1 to 10, you will give 10. That is because heavy risk. Similarly, in this example also, ladder examples also, for example, the ladder, for time being, I'll say that the ladder is tied very properly to the wall or something. So you'll ensure that the ladder is properly grounded. It is completely sealed with the nuts and bolts to the wall, and made sure that the ladder will never fall. Right? Nah? So that time what you are trying to do is that even the exposure is there to the ladder. Since the ladder is perfectly properly positioned to the wall with the proper chaining mechanism and whatever it is, so the ladder will not fall. Now we know that there is some the hazard potential of that particular ladder has come down. So typically the person of the chance falling down or the ladder falling down will be avoided, but the person falling down will not be avoided. So he has to take another controls, like having safety harness, okay, proper belts, so that whenever he slips from the ladder, he will get hanged. I mean, he will be controlled so that he will not fall. Right. So yeah. So that is how you have to. Yeah, tell me,
Hello.
Asadji. Shahepudi, Khalil, you are saying something?
I mean, the third example is work at height. A person work at height. This is hazard.
Yes, work at height is a hazard. Yes. So what is a work at height is one of the hazard. Yes. Tell me. Yeah.
Sir, work at height is not hazard.
Yeah.
Work at height without
hazard
PPEs
category.
is without PPEs is hazard.
Correct.
Sure, sir.
Correct. So what you said is work at height is one of the hazard potential. So when you're working at height is not a hazard, but it is an activity. So it's not a hazard, it is an activity. So what is
Yes,
the
sir.
hazard?
Yes.
What is the hazard there? When you're saying working at height, you're taken one hazard category you're taken. That we can say it as hazard category, or we can say it as one activity. So working at height, you have taken one example. Very good. So what is the hazard in that working at height?
Sir, falling down is a hazard.
Yes, correct.
Sir, you can't wear the harness.
No. Wo sab don't get into other things now. First, I am asking you, Some Khalil ji has said working at height. Very good example is taking. Working at height is a word that we can call it as hazard category. In safety terminology, it is called hazard category, or you can say one hazard activity. Either of the thing you can call. From these things, you need to understand hazard category or hazard activity. What is the hazard in it? So somebody said it. Person working at height has got so many hazards. Like person can fall down from that height. That is the first hazard. Second hazard, that he might be using some tools to do work at that height. So the tools may fall down from. They may slip from his hand and they can fall down. The third thing is that he might be standing on certain platform. That platform will have some material used, right? Those ledgers or some whatever wooden other things, put loggers or whatever it is, they also can fall down, right? So he might be carrying some other things. Okay, those can also slip. So the person himself can fall or the materials can fall. So these are the two different hazards that will happen for that same hazard category. So whenever you're speaking of any this one, you need to talk about the first. When we talk about any object or something, we are trying to impress upon a hazard activity or hazard category. Okay, or hazard element, whatever you call. From that you take hazards. So don't get confused between hazard category, hazard element, or hazard activity with respect to hazards. So hazards are different. Hazard category. Hazard category is a something we take as one element or one particular identical source. So you given a very good example. Work at height is a hazard activity. In that there are two main hazards. Let us take one, the person falling down, or second one, the tools or the equipment falling down. Is everybody okay with it? Correct, huh? Right.
Yes, sir.
Now, yes. Now, after a person, there are two. So the risk is very high in both the cases. So now, let us. I will give you one more example. The person is now protected with safety harness. Okay, he is now properly had a safety harness, and he is now properly positioned. He's that built anchorage point to some point in the this one. So now there is a slip happened for that person. Now he will not fall down. So he will only just be hanging in the because there is a safety harness that protected him, and people will start bringing him down. So the risk, he has reduced the risk. He has reduced the risk. The hazard will always be there. Falling down will always be there. But he has only reduced the risk by giving proper controls. Tools. So now many people what they're using is that their tools are now tied to their forearm or something where so they never slip. Okay, there are certain tools which have given proper positioning of tools and all. So many controls later on we'll come to study when we talk about safety controls and all. First, let us only assume that risk and hazard and exposure. So these are the three words. So when the exposure is very near to the hazard, their risk will be there. When the hazard and exposure are far different, the risk will be zero. So once a exposure becomes close to the hazard, depending upon the hazard intensity. Okay, so in the work from height, let us assume that two people are working in work for height. One person is working at first floor, another person is working from working in 10th floor. For both of them, the hazard is work at height. Hazard category is right. Hazard activity is work at height. Now tell me, for both of them, the hazard is the same, falling down. But किसके लिए risk ज़्यादा रहता? Both are exposed to falling from height, but the person falling from the 10th floor is more exposed because the impact of the falling down is very high. So the risk is very, very high in the 10th floor. Even the first floor is also high, but if you give 8 points to first floor, you give 10 points to the 10th floor, because beyond first floor, whether you fall from second or we fall from 10th, everything will be same, right? Na? So you should also understand the intensity also sometimes. So all these things, how you will come to know? Because as we practice more examples and you study safety examples in books and all, then you will come to know what are the different this one, right? So that is how we need to understand. So ladder falling. In the third one, a lightning strike. So a person is going in a car. Okay. Okay, so there is a thunderstorm and lightning. Since that car is protected with this one, so he's not exposed to the lightning strikes. Since he's not exposed to the lightning strike, there will be no risk. In the second example, the person is standing under the tree. See, trees are very dangerous during lightning because they have that lightning strike connected to the tree because the trees are attached to the ground. So from ground, the new electrons will have and they try to neutralize that charge coming from clouds. So that thunderstorm is having so many voltage, high voltage. So people who are standing near to the trees during rains are more fatal incidents are happening. So which means if you're standing under tree, you're exposed. So which means the risk is very, very high. So the hazard will always be there, whether you're inside whether there is a huge lightning, even though you be inside the house or you're not there, still the hazard will be there. No? The lightning will somewhere fall somewhere, even though you're not there. That will do its duty it will do its duty. While it happens, the hazard will be, if you come exposed to hazard, then it will be risk. Suppose during floods and all, you see there is a heavy floods or rain, you can see water moving around in under the bridges and they will water moving with such force over the bridges and all. But some people they heroically go down with they know that there is no human force that can stop the water flow. Water flow has got so much power that it can wipe everything in its this one. You might have seen in floods and all, right? So, but many people think that they can heroically cross or something. They start moving the vehicles and they get trapped in the vehicles and they will get into that. Okay. 1 minute. Right. So in the flood, in the moving water, in the floods and all, what is the hazard? The moving water. That is the hazard, moving water. Because its job is to move, that's all. Okay. But it carries with it a hazard. So if you wait till the moving water stops, then you are not exposed. But you want to heroically see that what will happen. I will cross that path by trying. What will happen? So the risk, if it is a very huge flow of water, definitely the risk will be very high. If there is less amount of water flow, it is a 50-50 chance that you can move on to the next road and you can go on. Otherwise, it can. I'm just giving you a realistic examples, okay? Because this happens every day somewhere in the world, right? So this is just to make sure that sometimes we know that hazard is there, but we take some exposure, thrill of exposure, and sometimes people get trapped in that. So our brain also every day justifies whether you have to take something action or not on this one. Our brain every day. Suppose there is you want to go out. So there is a huge rain, your brain also will process, na? No, 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 you should not go now. We'll go after the rain comes down, or you automatically take up umbrella, this raincoat. Why? Because our brain is designed to take some decisions, right? Based on the hazard that is present outside. So, in order to minimize the risk. So, that is what happens everywhere also. We will try to, but in industries, sometimes we may not be able to, due to lack of competency, expertise, knowledge, skill, everything, we may not be able to take correct decisions due to lack of because the machine is made by somebody else. So the amount of hazard that has been, if it is a natural thing, you could have known it, but it is something designed by humans and what hazards are there, until unless we learn about that machine, we cannot exactly say that. So that is the reason proper training competency, that is what we'll all discuss that. So we need to understand hazards that are present everywhere in the company, and based on the hazards we have to take controls based on the risk. So that is what the entire safety is there. Our job is to understand the hazards, understand the exposures, understand how much the risk would be. If the risk is very high, which means but more people can come probably into that accident trap. So how much trap it is there? So how much risk is there? So how to reduce the risk? So we'll try to keep action plans and reduce the risk and make sure that you provide safe work environment, you provide safe workplaces, and you provide safe this one to all the people who are working in the company. That's what you're supposed to do it. So that is the basic job of any safety professional. Their job is only one thing: understand the hazards, understand the exposure, understand and try to figure out whether it is low risk or high risk. If it is a low risk, we take basic controls. If it is a high risk, we take controls with the help of other. This is this activity is a group activity in industries and all. You also take suggestions from and all. So for doing this, it is called risk assessment. So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to assess the risk and accordingly keep controls. That is what IG2 is about. You are trying to do a practical risk assessment in IG2 and try to give suggestions based on certain parameters. That is what you are trying to do that. Anyway, that activity and all we'll do later on, but this is a basic version of how to understand hazard and risk. Hope I have given some amount of knowledge about hazard risk exposure, which would give you a basic flow to get through the your safety course, right? So hope everybody understood, no? Yes or no? Somebody can say right?
Yes, sir. I understand.
Right, okay. Other people?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Gulam ji, Nahimat, Kaiser, Sana Abdullah ji, you got it, na?
Yes,
Shahrukh?
sir. I will
Yes,
understand,
sir.
sir.
ठीक है, sir.
Completely, sir.
Sir, 2019 virus issue, COVID.
Yeah.
COVID. It's also called category third.
Tell me, sir, you given a very good example. Yeah, tell me COVID-19, what it is? You want to say something?
COVID-19, sir, virus.
Oh, okay.
It's a hazard categories, sir.
Yes, it is a see COVID. What you said, na, Mr. Khalil ji, what you said was a good example. So that is a virus, right? Na?
Yes, sir.
Virus. So that is called that is a biological hazard. What we call it as a biological hazard. So that will
Yes.
spread the disease. So the virus is a biological hazard. The hazard category. The hazard is the so by virus and all they create diseases and all, right? If they get into so COVID is a hazard. Okay, so it's a hazard category. Yeah, tell me. Yeah, so that's a hazard. Now what we know that is also very risk if somebody gets exposed to it. Yes or no? So somebody gets exposed, the virus will jump immediately into that person and it will also can lead to disease. So that is the hazard in it. Spreading the disease, spreading that particular virus easily into the other person is the hazard category. Okay, that is the hazard. Now, in order to ensure that that virus doesn't step into others' immune system or whatever it is, so what we have done is that we have taken many controls. We have taken, we have ensured that people use proper PPE, people maintain distance. Okay, people also use some vaccination. आप सबको vaccination हुआ होगा ना?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Yes, sir. Yes.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So everybody in the world at least got that vaccination. So by vaccination, what you are trying to do is that we are trying to do that prevention or whatever it is, control this one. It will even though this do that, and we are trying to reduce its intensity. That is what. Yes, what you said is a biological hazard. What is a
Yes, sir.
biological hazard? So again, in hazards also there are different categories. So as we go along, we'll discuss one by one. Don't worry about that. But you have given a very good example. So working at height, we have seen. So even the ladder is also working at height only. Okay. So even the ladder example is also working at height hazard category, and that hazard is falling down. Please understand that when you're trying to say whether you are saying the hazard itself or the hazard category. First, anybody will represent the hazard category. Then we'll be trying to say the hazard. Right. So hope everybody is clear. If you want to give any example, you can give anybody else. So while playing
Sir,
cricket, yeah.
a pond of water, a deep pond of water
Oh, deep
is a
pond of
hazard.
it is a hazard. It is a has see it is what we can say. It is some what we can say, has a deep pond of a pond of water which is deep. Okay, that is what you said. Very good. So that is a hazard category. It's not a hazard. It is hazard category or hazard element. In that, what is the hazard?
Sir, the person standing beside the pond, he don't know how deep the pond is.
So that is what is the hazard? Person
This
drowning is the hazard.
water,
That is,
water, sir, water. Yes, sir.
water is water will not be the hazard. Person drowning is the hazard.
Yes, sir. Person drowning is the hazard.
It is not the water. What water? If the water flow is very high, then it's a hazard. See, you should always think of two things. When you're saying something, when you're trying to identify something, it is a hazard category. What is that? If I touch that, or if I play with it, or if I get into that, what will happen to me? That will be the hazard. Suppose there is a river, and you know that the river depth is not at all there. It is completely dried. You can see some water, very low water. So immediately the water is the hazard category there. But the water depth is very low. Nothing will happen. There is no hazard there. You can just go and come out. Then what is the hazard? Nothing is there. So when you identify something, any activity or category or element, that comes as hazard category because you're trying to pick up some hazard from it. In this particular deep pond of water, the deep indicates that the pond is so deep that if somebody, a non-swimmer, gets into that, okay, the person will drown. So that is the hazard. Correct? Now everybody got it? Yeah, right. So what you
Yes.
said is, yes, what you said is that. Now,
Yes,
there
sir.
are
Yes,
two,
sir. Got it. Got it.
yes, got it. There are two exposures. Let us take some example, your example only. Let me give you another. There are two exposures. What are the two exposures? One person knows swimming and another person doesn't know swimming. Both of them jump. What will happen? The person who knows swimming, for him the risk is very, 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 very less. For the person who doesn't know swimming, for him the risk is very, 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 very high. Did you understand the difference?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Understand.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Got
That is how you have to do exercise in safety. So if you are able to understand this particular class, this 1 hour class, which I tried to give you some meaning, most of your coming classes will also be based on this logic, and it will be easy for you to pursue your IG2 or other subject related to safety. Got it, na? Yeah. This is the first thing in our
Yes, sir.
safety.
Yeah.
So this gives you a basic idea on how to move through your safety understanding. And because whenever you learn some new knowledge, you should know its language. That's more important because otherwise you cannot speak with others on that in that context. And also becomes difficult to understand anything from internet about its this one. Now, if you know hazard and risk, whatever you know after this class, you read some article, download some article from internet, any hazard risk. So you type some hazard risk, what you can say, right? You can say some blog or something. You write, study some paper or something. It become very easy for you. Now you can just like that you can understand because the core safety terminology, the way that terminology needs to be adopted, you understood. So it becomes very easy for you to grasp that context very easily for all of you. Yeah, right. Very good. So hope it has given you. Mr. Sanan Abdullah, you come. Shahrukh ji, yeah. Mr. Sanan Abdullah, can you hear me? Shahrukh ji, yeah.
Sir, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. Thank you. I thought today you come slightly late. I think I not seen your name.
Yeah, actually,
It's okay.
my
I
timing
know.
is like from the day 6 to in 6. It's I'm
Oh,
I'm from off duty,
okay, 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 okay.
and from 5 to 6 again, I start to begin. So
Okay, sir.
also now I'm traveling and trying to reaching the duty on time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know you're trying to do justice for these two things. Yeah. Right, okay, Chi, you can. Right. Anyway, so that's how the hazard and this one. So anybody else, if you want to give any examples, you can give, because the more amount of examples you give, the more clarity it will get and more practicality. I mean, you will be able to differentiate minor things also. So, for example, I'll give you one example, a simple example. There is a bowler in cricket, acha hai na? Because if, I know everybody here are cricket fans, all of you here. Uh, so, during playing cricket, for example, a person bowls, okay, to the batsman. Okay, the bowling has to be done with some speed, right? It is a fast bowler and all. So, what is the hazard there? What is hazard? Can you tell me hazard category, hazard, whatever is? Can you tell me, taking that particular cricket scenario into as an example? Nobody is saying ball. Ball is there, na?
Ball, ball is the hazard.
Ball.
Ji, sir.
The cricket ball, the cork ball or the cricket ball is the hazard. That is the hazard
Okay.
element. That is the hazard element. What is the hazard?
Element.
The
Getting
cricket,
hit by dead ball.
yes, the cricket ball going and hitting the person somewhere on the body is the hazard. Oh, it can hit. It can cause.
Sir.
Yeah.
Fire is the examples of hazard, sir.
What one?
Fire, sir, fire. Ag.
Ag. So ag.
Bones.
Let me complete this example. No, Muhammad Rizwanji. Yeah. Fire is a hazard because it can burn. So fire is a hazard category actually. So in that,
Yes.
what is the fire is a hazard category. So fire, what can fire do? As I said, the fire can burn. It can provide
Burn
heat.
anyone, yes, sir. Can burn anyone.
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
burning can
fire
happen.
can damage the body of any person, sir.
But there are, see, even no need to damage the body, no need to go near the fire. So there are many people, even though the fire, the smoke coming from the fire is also far off, and the smoke, many people died due to smoke. That's what I told you previously, Asadya also. How is fire? How is fire related to? If you see the entire history of fire accidents, na, the number of people, if suppose if you take 100 people died from fire, it is not due to the burning that they've died. Okay, only 2 or 3% only will die out of fire burning. All remaining 90% will die due to smoke only. Because due to the smoke inhalation, they will become unconscious. Later on, they will come on the line of fire. So that is how they say that they become, nobody will just like that jump into fire. Na? If there is no smoke, everybody can escape. It is due to the heat and smoke that makes a person vulnerable to fire. It is not due to the fire itself. So burning under the intensity of fire is a second factor. If you're not able to escape from that area and the entire fire happens, suppose somebody stucks up in some vehicle during collision and that vehicle gets suddenly under fire and the person is trapped inside, that time he will directly come exposed under the fire. So only those cases will be there. In some explosions and all, no? It is the hot air, it is the smoke, or in a lift and all. Many people during the fire, they say that not to use lift. Why? Because if you use lift in fire, suddenly due to power failure, the lift may come to some extent and it can stop. And all the people in that lift will become trapped. Why? Because the lift, where it moves up and down in any apartment complex or any office complex, that lift where it moves, no, that acts like a chimney due to its natural draft, due to all the smoke that wherever any part of the building, the smoke tries to move through the draft mechanism and it moves through the chimney and it goes out to the external this one. So while moving through that lift draught or lift space, it completely chokes up the and it moves through the lift. So there will be so many leakages in the lift. So the smoke will start spreading in the lift. All the people will become suffocated, and within few minutes they will all become unconscious. So and they will all die because you need to immediately make them into oxygen atmosphere within 3-4 seconds. Otherwise, our body cannot tolerate more than 8 seconds or 9 seconds. So it will be a death, immediate death. That is the reason you should always fear of smoke in case of fire, not due to the fire itself. Okay, until unless somewhere somebody is trapped, that the fire is not a major problem. It's the smoke that is problem. Always remember that.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is how you need to define examples, define control. So that is the reason you see in you see at many places where the lifts are kept, they say it, you've seen it, don't use lift in case of fire. लिखा है ना, बहुत बार लिखा है कोई भी. I think you come across those lift stairs. I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but in all shopping complexes and all, they make it mandatory that this symbol will say that. So nowadays, due to improve in automation and improval in the way the people are trying to have safety, what we can say, advancements and safety and all, the lifts actually it's so now the lift has become we can say that automatic recall mechanism. See, in case of fire, and if there is alarm button pressed, and if there is a fire detection alarm panel, it is linked to the alarm panel. Actually, when there is a fire alarm in detected in somewhere in the entire system, anywhere in that company or organization, what they do is that when this that particular lift will come to one particular floor where there is a safe floor based on the logic, and the doors will remain open and it will be staying there itself. So that even though somebody unknowingly in panic, even though they want to climb the lift, they will not able to do that, because the lift will become permanently non-functional with the door opens. So that even though the person goes inside, he tries to press any button, that lift will not move. The doors will always open and he will again come back actually. That's called automatic recall systems, and it is now there in almost all the developed countries. So in developing countries, still it is to be done. Hope everybody is getting it now, what I'm saying.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. So that's how we need to understand the controls. So in some controls, see, as I said, automatic, everybody cannot invest money, because whenever you want to have some safety features, so it depends upon money. Some can give simple measures, some can give very easy measures, and also it all depends on how you tackle that concept, whatever it is. So yeah. So this one thing which I wanted to say. Anybody can give another example of hazard, risk, and exposure based on the example. So at 7:30, we will 7:25 or something we'll stop. Okay, 7, and we'll take a break, and again we'll come back. But now, and we'll study the actual element too. This is a basic thing which I want to tell you. Tell me what is a hazard, risk, and this one. Any other exposure? Any example you give me, I'll close that now.
Like hazards from oil and gas. The
Anything,
toxic
you can give
gases.
anything. Any hazard, you can give any hazard.
Yeah, working on industrial areas where the factories are located, such for finding oil and gas, petroleum, etc.
Yes, but I want a specific hazard and risk. So
Yeah, so there might be gas leakage.
which
Toxic
one?
gas
Which one? Which
leakage.
one? What you said, sir?
Toxic gas leakages.
Very good. Toxic gas leakage. Very good. You used one word, toxic gas leakage. So very good. So what is the hazard? Chemical.
The toxic gas is a hazard.
Yes. Chemical toxic gas is the hazard. It can cause, yes. So that is the hazard, because toxic gas is the, so that is a chemical hazard. Okay. Toxic gas release is the chemical hazard category, and toxicity, toxic gas is the hazard, right? So because the word toxic itself suggests that it is harmful to the person, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what is the, then how you identify the risk?
There should be a proper PPE.
No. Risk, tell me first. You're trying to control the risk itself without telling me the risk. PP is you're trying to tell me the control. I'm telling you, you identified a very good hazard, toxic
Yes.
release. Very good. So I'm telling you, how do you understand the risk?
Yeah, so for that we have to first take take out the proper PPE, because
No, no,
without the
no.
proper PPE, it includes all the helmets and the mask stuff.
Yes.
So for knowing that from where it is been leaking the toxic gases, so you have firstly to have safety yourself, then you can move enter, because in the oil and gas where the toxic gases are reduced or are produced, so there you can't enter without a proper PPE. So
I'll
first
tell
of
you.
all, you
Yeah.
need a proper
Wha-
PPE.
1 minute. What you're trying to say, you're trying to identify the hazard and you're
Yes,
trying to get into the controls, absolute
yes,
controls. But that is not the case actually in risk assessment. You identify toxic gas. For example, the toxic, let me tell you, there is a release of toxic gas. For suppose the company, now you should understand, now you should say if a toxic gas is the hazard. So now what is the risk if a person, if the toxic gas is spreading to the human, I mean to the spreading to the people who are working, or it is coming
yeah,
in direct contact with the people, or what is its exposure? See, since the gases can spread anywhere,
yeah.
it can be a
Uh,
risk to every
there,
person.
yeah. Basically,
So
there are three signboards.
yes,
One is the green color, one is red,
yes,
and one is yellow.
yes,
So the green means that everything is normal. The red means that there is still hazard,
yes. So
and the yellow one means that at some point the hazard has been reduced.
correct. So these things, na,
Yes, sir.
yes, those gives you a risk identification actually. So when you are
Yes,
trying to have a toxic release somewhere, so that the gas release is absolutely very dangerous because it can spread to any part of the company depending upon the wind direction. Depending upon
yes,
the wind direction. So wind direction becomes a process. That is the reason in oil and gas you have got that this detector systems, okay, that hydrocarbon detectors, H2S
yes,
detectors, chlorine detectors kept at every point. So that these detectors they collect the toxic atmosphere data and it will give you an indication which side you are to not to run and all. Okay, so the risk
yes,
is people coming in line with the toxic atmosphere. That is the risk. That is the risk. So all the people who are working, it can be any department or any industry or department, whatever it is, if they are in that line of the wind that day, on the day of accident, they are all exposed to that hazard. So that is why their risk is very high compared to the people who are not in the line of the wind. So for them, the risk is slightly less. So that is what you have to first define the risk. So immediately, once the risk is due to the wind direction, the people, the emergency control people who tries to immediately control the situation will start working on the wind direction. So they will try to vacate all the people who are on the pathway of the wind or who are exposed. So they will try to make everybody as far as possible because this toxic atmosphere will get diluted over a period of time. So they will always try to do that. For that, everybody should wear PPE. Then the controls will come. PPEs, your helmet, whatever other controls for respiratory protective equipment, what to wear. So what controls are, because there is emergency drill already provided. Based on the emergency drill, then the risk controls have to be kept in position. So first, always we should understand what is hazard, what is the risk due to that hazard if exposure happens. So whether the risk is high or low. So for high risk, what are the controls and how you have to tackle it. So that is how you have to come one after another. So there you said that you kept that green indications. There are in oil and gas, there are continuous indications of light also that will come. So and there are certain improved companies where they will also give you the light indications of red, green and all. That will tell you that that is the safest way to go. You can escape from that area. Red indication indicates that you cannot escape from that area and don't use that pathway. So there are emergency Pathways also, visual communication has been given. Okay, so there are many things. Correct, sir. Right, na, Sananji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right.
Yeah. So this is a unit. So this is a subject which has got no end or no start. I mean, as you go along, we can discuss many things, and across that is why you are supposed to do this particular exercise, what we are discussing today in IG2. This entire IG2 will be kept on that. We'll do one exercise, someone for 4th